Welcome to the Deal by Me podcast, where we ask guests to tell us your story. Hello there, this is Dr. James W. Smith, your host. We seek to transform lives by encouraging and inspiring. So when you listen to any of the Deal by Me podcasts, please support this podcast with a donation or a monthly recurring amount for as little as $3. If you're viewing the podcast on YouTube, please subscribe. To supporters of this podcast, we say thank you. Check out my encouraging, inspiring, and transforming books that can be found on Amazon. I'm available for speaking engagements, in person, and virtual seminars. Please contact me by Facebook, X, and on LinkedIn. I have with me Jack Kammer, who started a social work consultancy called Working Well with Men, whose mission was to provide tools and training for the social work profession to help men give and get all the love they can. I'm not going to say anything else. I'm going to let Jack talk about this because this is going to be really interesting and exciting. So I'm going to bring him on. So, Jack, would you just tell us a little about yourself and where you are located?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Dr. Smith. So a little bit about myself is that I am a retired social worker, was also for a year a parole and probation agent in central Baltimore. I live in Howard County, Maryland, which is between Baltimore and Washington, D.C. Sounds like you're interested in the tagline with the mission of working well with men to help men give and get all the love they can.
I love
It's
that.
really, thank you. It's really what I'm all about. And I think we could do ourselves a world of good as a society if instead of worrying about how to help men make as much money as they can, we help them give and get as much love as they can.
Oh, I love it. I love it.
And I got the feeling, nobody's tested this scientifically as far as I know, but I got the feeling from the working with the men that I worked with that they don't want to be wallets. They don't
Hmm.
want to be wallets. And by beating on them to get a job and earn money, we sort of disincentivize them. That's not what they want to hear. They want to hear that they are loved and appreciated and that they are recognized as being good for their kids. And so if we focused on their relationships, if we focused on helping them give and get all the love they can, they're going to be out there making as much money as they can because they got something to do it for. That's basically the mission.
Oh, I love it. I love it. I have to tell you, Jack, that I've read and skimmed your profile. Very interesting and fascinating. As a matter of fact, I was really thrilled by it as I read it. So I am interested in knowing a few things. Uh, Number one, why are male gender issues important to society? What difference does it make? You talk about all of this, but why is it important?
Well, because relationships are important.
Okay.
I mean, that's basically it.
All right.
Yes, money is important, political power is important, but at the end of the day, what is most important for a happy life, given that you have your basic needs met,
Hmm.
what's most important to a happy life is the quality of your relationships. And that's been demonstrated scientifically by the longest longitudinal study ever undertaken on adult happiness. It's
Hmm.
being conducted at Harvard. And the fellow who runs that study has told a magazine writer for Atlantic Magazine that what the data are showing is that the most important thing for a happy life is the quality of your relationships.
Hmm.
And everybody wants to be loved. Everybody wants to give love. If they're given a half a fair shake in life,
Okay.
and if you don't have love and you can't find love through just being regarded as a good human being,
Hmm.
well, then, you might go out and do some bad things to sort of get some love somehow.
Okay.
Because for men, often the amount of love you get is very much tied to how much money you
Mm.
have, how much
Mm.
money you make. And, there are a lot of people who are having a hard time. And I will say, especially Black men, I have a very special spot in my heart and soul for the trials and tribulations of Black men, because I think Black men get a very bad double whammy.
Hmm.
They get the adverse effects of being Black. And so racism can very much make life difficult for Black men. They also get the adverse effects of being male. And there are lots of biases against people who are male.
Hmm.
Men are violent, men are sex crazed, men don't have a clue. They can't multitask. They don't really love their kids. They're not patient. All of those things. And recent scientific research has found that the strongest implicit bias of all,
Hmm.
the strongest implicit bias of all, is not according to race, it's according to gender. And men, including Black men,
Hmm.
um, are most suspect in our implicit bias um, calculations. Oh, that person's a man. I don't think I can trust him. Now, if he's also a Black man, that's the double whammy.
Hmm.
But being male is not always an advantage. And that's
Mm.
really the essence of my
Yeah.
message.
Yeah. Well, that's very interesting, Jack. Uh, and I'm trying to sort through your conversation, and I must admit that it's fascinating. It's very intriguing, and so I'm trying to pull it all together as we're talking, so that I can get a good feel, and hopefully listeners of this podcast will get a good feel for where you are. Uh, but you just talked about it in terms of a black man, and obviously I'm African American. You obviously see that. So I'm curious with this. Isn't all this talk of men gender issues like talking about white people's race issues?
Well, that's often said.
Uh-huh.
And the way I say it is that there are really two main realms of human life.
Okay.
We talk about work-life balance. There's work where you can make money,
Okay.
but then there's life where you can have your relationships. And yes, there have been advantages to men in the sphere of life that's involved in making money. But the sphere of life that's involved in having relationships and being valued for the quality of your relationships is less relevant to men, because women are the ones who are entrusted with that domain.
Mm, mm,
And so talking about male gender issues, specifically in the context of the quality of men's relationships and the need for men to have relationships, is, I don't think, at all like talking about um, a white rights movement
mhm. Okay.
in
Okay.
the arena of legalities and civil rights.
Okay. I think I follow you. And you're making some headway with me right now. I'm feeling you. Um, I guess I'm wanted to kind of pull this into some kind of I guess dissect it a little bit. Now, as you are dealing with uh this issue, you you you're not saying women are sexist, are you?
I certainly do believe that some women are sexist,
Okay.
just as I do believe that some men are sexist. As a
Okay.
matter of fact, I like to say that the most sexist idea of all is that only men are sexist. That's
Hmm.
a sexist idea.
Okay.
Women are human, men are human. Men, one of our human frailties is that we can be sexist toward women. One of women's human frailties is that they can be sexist toward men. I mean, what is sexism other than believing that you're better than somebody else by virtue of your gender and their gender?
Okay.
There are many ways that we know of that we could recite, and I'd be happy to do it if you'd like me to. We know there are many ways in which men, especially in the past, have been raised to believe they are superior to women.
Hmm.
And when men act on those ideas of superiority, they're being sexist. We also would do ourselves a very big favor as a society if we would recognize that there are many ways in which we as a society believe women are superior to men.
Okay.
And the reason that's harmful to us as a society is, well, let's first take a look at what we have no disagreement about. Um, it is a big waste of women's talents and abilities to say what we used to say, which is, well, women can't do math, women can't do science, women aren't logical, women cry too much. All of these being reasons why we didn't want to allow women into the man's domain of jobs and careers.
Hmm. Okay.
Um, we know that's wrong. Sexism serves the purpose of the sex that's not being discriminated against. Um, it's a way of holding women down.
Hmm.
But we can also very easily, if we think about it, talk about the ways in which we believe women are superior to men. Women are kind, women are gentle, women are nice, women are nurturing. Um, the implicit uh, flip side of that is men are violent, men aren't nice, men aren't kind, men aren't nurturing.
Huh.
And that is a waste, but in a different way. That
Okay.
is a waste of men's capacity to be loving and nurturing and good and important people in their communities, regardless of how much money they have, um, to be good parents to their kids, regardless of how much money they have, that men love and they want to be loved, and their kids want them and need them.
Okay.
So,
I guess Jack, I'm listening to you as you're talking. You're not pitting men against women, or vice versa. Uh, so I'm asking, aren't you just fostering more divisiveness and more identity politics as you deal with this? And kind of, if you're not, just share it with us because I know listeners want to hear it. So kind of
well,
get in a little bit more into the weeds as you deal with this.
you know the saying about don't shoot the messenger,
Okay.
right?
Hmm.
I'm only the messenger here. I'm not
Okay.
creating this situation.
All right.
I am, however, a person who has accepted the mission of saying we need to talk about this. We
Okay.
need to talk about the ways in which men are regarded as not as good as women in some very important ways. And the primary way in which men are not regarded as the equals of women is in the family. And this helps to explain why we have so many kids growing up without fathers, because fathers often are not sufficiently valued and recognized and appreciated as important parents, important members of their family, important sources of nurturance and love and guidance and affection for their kids. It was a terrible waste for our society when we didn't recognize women's importance and value and talents to be good people in business. We're doing the same thing when we discount the value and importance of men and their capacity to love. So no, I am not pitting
Okay.
anybody against anybody. I
Okay.
think that we have been pitting men against women and women against men for what, millennia?
Hmm.
There've always been disagreements and conflict between men and women.
So what you're
I think,
doing, is really in your discussion of this, you're really trying to share uh, it from the men's standpoint. Am
yes,
I
very much
okay?
so,
Okay,
very
okay,
much so,
okay. I
very
got it
much
now.
so.
Okay, okay.
Yeah,
All right.
yeah.
Well, I think we're on the same page. Okay. Now, it's kind of interesting because I know this might be, an issue or something, but somebody might ask, what's the problem? I don't hear men complaining. So why are you dealing with this?
So you don't hear men complaining.
Hmm.
Why don't you hear men complaining? Because men know they don't really get respected when they're complaining. When a man
Oh,
complains, he's often dismissed as whining,
okay.
whining.
Okay.
Men don't like to be perceived as being victims. And if a woman says she's got a problem and she doesn't feel like she's being treated fairly, we listen to her.
Hmm.
When it's much less true that when a man talks about his personal problems,
Hmm.
that we listen to him. Very often the reaction is, oh, as if you guys don't run the world. What do you have to complain about? And so, we tell men we want to hear their feelings, but then when men
Huh.
will say a problem that has no easy solution, then we might not really want to hear their feelings as as much. Men aren't complaining because we don't get valued for complaining. We get valued for solving problems, and also we get valued for manning up. Man up, tough it
Mm,
out.
mm.
Don't be a crybaby. Be a
Yeah,
tough guy.
I get I can kind of, I can really identify with a lot that you say because at one point in my life, I felt the same way. I felt that I wouldn't cry because that showed that if I did, that I was not strong, that, I was not this man that I should be, you know, uh, and that folks would see me in a different light. So I had to always project this image that I was, not this crybaby or whatever you might want to say. But then I went through my difficulties, and where where somehow humility stepped in and all other stuff that I had not really seen myself as this person. But then it made me realize that crying is good for you. There's no problem with doing that. So I don't have a problem with it now, but I understand where you are as you talk about the feeling of black men, because black men, not only just black men, white men too, So I know where you're going with that. But it's very interesting. It's very interesting. Something else that I think, and I think you kind of listed this as a question, is that you're really not a misogynist, aren't you? You know,
Yes,
why
sorry.
why do you hate women?
Yeah. Well, see, that often comes up.
uh,
Um, it often comes up as a question, and it's kind of surprising to me.
okay,
When women say true things, or at least things they believe to be true, about unfortunate behaviors and ideas and attitudes that men have, we don't call them men haters.
okay.
We call them strong, empowered women who are maintaining their boundaries and their dignity and their integrity, and they aren't going to take bad behavior that has no reasonable basis um, for being allowed.
Okay.
Similarly, look, men are human. We do bad things sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
And women have a right to talk about some bad things we do sometimes.
Okay.
Women are human. Sometimes they do bad things. Women have power. Sometimes they use their power selfishly, especially in situations involving the family where they believe they are the primary person. And men have the right, they have the need to say, that wasn't right what you just did. It's not good that women believe they are always better
Mm-hmm.
parents than men are.
Okay.
This needs to stop. Now, it's it's not good if a man has to risk being called a misogynist, a woman hater, if he dares to say anything
Mm.
that is unfortunate or in any way critical of a particular woman or of female culture generally. So, no, I am not a misogynist, but I am a human being who knows that women too are human beings. And
Mm-hmm.
so they sometimes do bad things. And we don't do ourselves any favors as a society to pretend that women never, ever, ever do anything wrong.
Mm.
Because
Okay.
then women can just continue it being wrong, and we continue having to deal with the ramifications of behavior that should be addressed and should at least be talked about. Um, so nope,
Wow. That's
I'm not a man. I'm not a woman hater.
okay. Okay. I didn't think you were, but it was an interesting question. I think somebody must have asked you that before, and you
All
kind
the
of,
time.
yeah,
All the time.
okay, okay, all right. Now, I am, since my podcast is about encouraging, inspiring, and transforming, I would like to kind of see how I can fit this into to uh, what my podcast is about because I'm enjoying what you say. Uh, and so I want to put it this way: if there are men listening to this, you know, riding their cars, and they say, they've been listening to some of my podcasts. Let me hear what Dear By Me said today. I want to, check it
How,
out,
how,
and
how,
and they check it out. How, and what would you say to them that would be encouraging if they're listening to what you got to say, if they listen to all of this about black men, white men, whatever it is, what would you say to them that could be encouraging to them?
I would say that if they feel like there are problems, not just advantages in being a man,
Hmm.
they do not have a personal problem. They're not imagining things,
Okay.
that they are not alone. And if you feel that there are problems with being a man, you should feel perfectly justified in seeking people who will listen to what you have to say about that.
Okay.
Because the first step in solving a problem is in acknowledging the problem.
Okay.
And if you feel like the world is not fair to you because you're a man, that is not encouraging to you.
Hmm.
It makes you feel like, why should I bother? The world is stacked against me. But if you feel, yeah, the world is sometimes very unfair to men,
Hmm.
but we can solve this. We can solve this problem.
Okay.
And the way we solve the problem is by being humble, genuine, sincere, honest, truthful about what we feel, and just say what we feel, not to demand that what you want to do about it should automatically be implemented as the solution, because the solutions are going to be very complex because
Okay.
male-female relations are very complex.
Okay.
But you
Okay.
should have the ability to say, this is something that I think sometimes, and this is
Mm-hmm.
something that I feel sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw some behavior that hurt this man the other day, and I didn't think that was right. And can we talk about these things? And the
Okay.
answer is yes, we should certainly be allowed to talk about them. And then we explore them and try to figure out how to make things better for our families, for our communities, for our cities, for our state, our nation, and the world.
Okay. Listen, I want to, well, I just want to say to the guests, to guests of this, not guests, but to those listeners of this podcast, please don't go in a place because Jack is giving some really uh, interesting information to us. And so I want you to just hold on for a moment because because I want to ask Jack uh, how you can contact him, learn more about what he's doing, and perhaps benefit from what he has to say, because he can't give it all to us in this podcast. So, Jack, will you share a little bit about how we can learn more about you and what you do? Would you take this time to do that? If you have a book or anything, just share it at this time.
Well, I have written 3 books, but everything that I've done around the idea of male gender issues and helping men give and get all the love they can is based at my website, malefriendlymedia.com. Male Friendly Media is all one word, no hyphens, malefriendlymedia.com. So you can find my books there, my essays there, my newspaper columns,
Mm-hmm.
magazine articles. It's all there. All my
Okay.
podcasts,
Okay.
some YouTube videos I've done. So it's at
Oh,
malefriendlymedia.com.
okay. Sounds great. Now, listen, I hope you took that to heart and please, you need to learn more about this gentleman. He is exciting and just sharing some awesome information with us. And I got a couple more questions. I'm not quite finished with him yet. This guy's talking today. Uh, what do you mean when you talk about the double whammy? That
Well,
black
it's
men have to deal with. I think you might have mentioned a little bit about it
yes,
earlier. So tell us a
yes.
little bit more.
So in one sentence, the way I could say it is that racism knocks black men down,
Mm-hmm.
sexism comes along to kick them.
Mm. Wow.
Racism
Wow.
knocks black men down by making it very difficult to do what men traditionally are supposed to do, be the
Uh,
provider, make the money.
mm-hmm.
So racism knocks them down. Now they're down on the ground feeling terrible,
Mm-hmm.
and along comes sexism to say, um, "What kind of man are you?
Lord have
You are a
mercy.
you are a sorry excuse for a man."
Mm.
And that gets depressing,
Yeah.
and it makes some men depressed. It makes some men angry. It makes some men a combination of the two. And we don't want to have a lot of angry men uh,
Mm-hmm.
in our communities who don't feel like they're loved or listened to or
Mm.
cared about.
Okay.
Um, so that's what I mean.
All right.
Racism is a terrible thing that happens to men. Sexism is also a terrible thing that happens to men.
Mm. Now, uh, I do you still have your radio show?
No, sir. I stopped doing
Okay.
that in 89.
Okay. I was reading something about where you had started a radio show. Okay. Uh, Now, let me ask you this question. As you look back on your life, what is the first instance of sexism against males that you remember?
Okay. I'm glad you asked. That is a very good place to start. I can remember way back when I was a little boy.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, when it happened to me, I didn't really know what it was, didn't have any words to even process it, but I knew something was up with it and I didn't
Okay.
like it. Now, before I tell you what it was that happened to me, which is something that we as a society don't think much about, I want to talk with you about the mirror image of what happened to me,
Okay.
things that we know are not good when they happen to little girls.
Okay.
We know that if you see a little girl who's good at sports.
Mm-hmm.
We don't really say this much anymore because we've learned you don't say it. But back in the day, somebody might say to that little girl, gee, you're really good at sports, dot, 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 for a girl. Or, gee,
Uh,
you're really good at math, dot, 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 for a girl. Or science, you're good
mm-hmm.
at science for a girl.
Okay.
That's a backhanded compliment. And by saying you're good for a girl, you're sort of saying that girls are inferior in these things, but you're pretty good at it anyhow.
Mm-hmm.
It's also sort of a way of saying, look, math and science are for men. That's
Mm-hmm.
men are professors and men do that. Your job is to grow up and be the mom.
Mm-hmm.
And so, stay in your lane. It's called sexism against girls and women.
Mm-hmm.
So let's flip now to what I used to hear when I was a little boy. I used to hear, gee, Jack, you're really good with babies
Mm.
for a
Okay.
boy,
Okay.
for a boy,
Mm-hmm.
which is a way of sort of saying to me, boys really aren't
I
supposed to
got
be
you.
good with
I I
with babies.
I
There
hear
might
you.
be some there might be something wrong with me
Mm-hmm.
because I'm odd, I'm weird.
Mm-hmm.
I'm good with babies and I'm a boy.
Right.
Geez, maybe I should avoid this so nobody will think I'm weird.
Mm-hmm. I got you.
Um, that was the beginning, the
Okay.
first piece of sexism I felt directed towards me as a male.
It must have been relatively powerful too because you're able to recall it.
Yes, sir.
Mm.
Yes, sir. Very powerful. Now,
Mm-hmm.
I didn't really understand it, but I
Mm-hmm.
knew I just did not like it, and I knew something was up with this.
Right. Right. I get you. I hear what you say. Well, I have to end this conversation, but I tell you, it's awesome. I'm enjoying talking with you, Jack. This has been fantastic. So, my last question to you then, how has your work on these issues changed your own life?
That's also a good question, Dr. Smith. Um, when I was younger, in my teens and in my 20s
Mm-hmm.
and into my 30s, um, I really didn't really trust my feelings
Okay.
because, I'm a man, and what do men know about feelings? Women are the experts in emotions. You
Mm-hmm.
know, my job isn't to have feelings. My job is, just to go out and get things done. So I didn't really have much vocabulary for my thoughts, didn't really want to pay much attention to my thoughts and feelings. Um, but being involved with the social issues of men and boys and sexist ideas about men and boys showed me that the idea that I don't have feelings and shouldn't pay attention to my feelings was really a bad idea because the way I think of it now is that your feelings, your emotions are the spark plugs of your personality.
Mm.
And if you disconnect your feelings and your emotions from your engine, you ain't going nowhere.
Mm.
You're just sort of moping around like, oh man, life is terrible. I don't have any fun. I don't have any enjoyment. I don't feel anything. I just get up and go to work in the morning, and nobody really cares about what's really going on with me. In fact, I don't even know if I care about it myself.
Mm-hmm.
Just kind of depressing, you know.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't pay attention to, how you are when you're sad, you really don't pay attention to how you are when you're happy.
Mm-hmm.
You gotta be plugged into who you are, what's going on with you
I
at that
got you.
moment.
I hear you.
So that's how being involved in the men's movement
Mm-hmm.
has improved my life.
Okay. I hear that. Well said. Jack, it's been a pleasure sharing with you today. This interview has been really inspiring, and just awesome, and I'm certain that listeners will really get something from it just hearing it. You have I've never heard it from that viewpoint, And so I just want to thank you for sharing it. It's really it speaks to men on a different level, and I do appreciate that.
Well, I appreciate your having me on the show, Dr. Smith. It
No
was
problem. No
very,
problem.
very, very courageous of you to do that, and God love you for it.
Thank you so much. And there you have it, Jack Kammer sharing with us today. And until next time, peace and blessings be with each of you.